Briann January caught on camera stalking Caitlin Clark nonstop throughout the game. Caitlin Clark can't even say anything without Briann January being right here. Like, come on, back up, back up. This is getting crazy. Briann January needs to fall back, find something else to do.
Caught on camera, and the internet is not letting this one go, because what you're watching isn't normal sideline behavior. It's something else entirely, and it's happening game after game after game.
Okay, now you got Caitlin Clark talking to the official. Yeah, she not bothering you, Briann January. Mind your business. Now look. Hold on. Let me get the right one for y'all, man. Because Briann January's popping up like the damn Undertaker. Like, dude.
Briann January is a WNBA official. Her job is to referee the game, make calls, manage the flow. That's it. But throughout the Indiana Fever versus Las Vegas Aces matchup, cameras captured her doing something that has absolutely nothing to do with officiating. She's tracking Caitlin Clark. Not just in her vicinity, not just near the play, directly behind her, hovering, following her across the court like she's assigned to shadow duty. And here's what makes this blow up. This isn't the first time. Fans have been clipping these moments all season long. The pattern is undeniable.
There, right there. Right there. Look, boom, here goes Briann January. Just right here. Just stalking her. She's right here, just stalking her. Like, why are you behind? I'm talking to the ref. Why are you behind me? Like, everybody is going that way to the locker room. Go that way. Why are you right behind me at all times? Like, it's crazy. She's talking to the refs. Briann January, here you come out of nowhere, right here. Here you come. You wasn't even in the frame. Why are you stalking? Why are you hovering over my shoulder every 13 seconds? Like, back, give me 10 feet. Back up.
Look at the positioning. Caitlin is talking to the referee about a buzzer beater that got waved off. Lexi Hull hit a shot right before halftime. The officials ruled it didn't count. Standard conversation between a player and a ref to clarify the call. Normal basketball stuff. Briann January wasn't part of that conversation. She was nowhere near the play initially. But then she appears, right over Caitlin's shoulder, not talking to her, not addressing the situation, just there, standing close enough that Caitlin would feel her presence. And when Caitlin moves, January moves. When everyone else heads toward the locker room, January stays locked in. The optics are terrible. And the comparisons people are making, Undertaker rising from under the ring, Sting dropping from the rafters, they're funny, but they're also pointing at something real. This doesn't look like officiating. It looks like monitoring.
Side of Caitlin Clark. Shout out to my boy Mick Talk Hoops. He made some interesting comments, and then we got to get to what Stephen A. Smith had to say as well. And I agree wholeheartedly with what he's saying here. Here he says, it's clear the Fever with Caitlin Clark and without Caitlin Clark are two different teams stylistically. I agree. I don't think they're up in this game if they tried to play this style with Caitlin Clark. Steph's system relies on low-maintenance point guard that doesn't eat the ball and just passes side to side. Then he also says Stephanie White's system absolutely works better without Caitlin Clark. Why I've said it from game 2 last year. You either choose Stephanie White or Caitlin Clark. I think the Indiana Fever have done everything they can to build around Stephanie White, not Caitlin.
So let's talk about what's actually happening with the Indiana Fever this season. Because the Briann January situation is just one piece of a much bigger story, and it's a story the front office doesn't want you paying too much attention to. Mick Talkeeps, who covers the league closely, put out a thread that connects the dots. He says the Fever with Caitlin Clark and the Fever without Caitlin Clark are two completely different teams, stylistically. And he's not talking about talent, he's talking about system. The offense head coach Stephanie White runs works better when Caitlin isn't on the floor. It's built around low-usage point guards who don't dominate the ball, who pass side to side, who fit into a structure that doesn't require a primary creator. Caitlin Clark is the opposite of that. She is a high-usage, high-creativity, score-first or create-for-others type of player. She needs the ball in her hands, she needs space to operate, she needs a system designed around her strengths. The Fever didn't build that system, they built the opposite. And according to Mick, that's not an accident.
Caitlin Clark is, I agree. Here's a big one. The Fever had 2 off seasons to build around Caitlin Clark with their coach and other signings. The front office instead built a roster and coaching staff the complete opposite way to play a style, the opposite of what Caitlin Clark would be able to thrive in. And it's likely too late to reverse course. And I'll take a look at this from WNBA_analyst. It says Amber Cox and Stephanie White have built a roster and system to work without Caitlin Clark. It doesn't work with Caitlin. I believe that is intentional. I agree that is intentional. They purposely went out of their way to try to build a team to play better without their best player because they want to be able to move on from her. They're sabotaging her, and I think it's 100% intentional.
Here's the part that should actually bother you. The Fever had 2 full off-seasons to build around Caitlin Clark, 2 off-seasons to bring in the right coach, the right pieces, the right structure. They chose Stephanie White. They signed players who fit White's system. And that system, by design, minimizes what makes Caitlin special. Now you can argue that's just a coaching philosophy mismatch. That happens in sports. But when you look at how the team performs when Caitlin sits, when you see them playing faster, more fluid, more cohesive without their best player on the court, you have to ask the question. Did they build this roster to win with Caitlin Clark, or did they build it to prove they can win without her? Because if it's the latter, and a lot of people believe it is, then what you're watching isn't just bad roster construction, it's sabotage. It's a front office and a coaching staff intentionally setting up their franchise player to struggle, so they can justify moving on from her down the line. And that would explain a lot. It would explain why Caitlin's usage rate is lower than it should be, why the offense stalls when she's in, why her teammates don't seem to be on the same page. It's not chemistry, it's structure. The structure was built to work around her, not with her.
Let's take a look.
Backwards and forwards, all 3 of you do. And so when I took the position last year, when there was some Caitlin Clark issues, like, listen, there's some jealousy. It's not everybody. It's not most, but there's some resentment there. On one hand, I understood it because I said, hey, you know what? There's ladies that's been in this league for years that did everything they could to uplift and build the sport to this point, and then everybody wants to throw all the praise and all the acclaim in Caitlin Clark's direction. So that's going to build some resentment.
But it don't matter. It don't matter what they did. They didn't do it. I get you. You was trying, but you didn't do it. She brought the eyes. She brought the money. She was the show. It is what it is. Nobody said y'all couldn't play at all. There's been players that can play. The fact of the matter is, y'all couldn't get people to care that y'all was good at playing. Y'all couldn't get nobody to care. And she showed up and got people to care. It is what it is.
But on the other hand, a rising tide lifts all boats. And just like folks in the NBA rode that Magic Johnson, Larry Bird wave, and then they ultimately rode the Michael Jordan wave, that's what these ladies should be doing.
Now, Stephen A. Smith gets into this on his show, and he frames it in a way that cuts straight to the heart of what's really going on here. He talks about jealousy, about resentment, about players who spent years trying to build the WNBA into something bigger, only to watch Caitlin Clark show up and become the face of the league overnight. And look, Stephen A. tries to be diplomatic about it. He says he understands both sides. He acknowledges that veterans have a right to feel overlooked, that they put in the work, that they carried the league when nobody was watching, and now all the attention, all the money, all the praise is going to one player. But then he makes the point that matters. He says, yeah, you tried. But you didn't do it. You didn't move the needle. You didn't get people to care. And Caitlin Clark did. She brought the eyeballs. She brought the ratings. She brought the money. That's not her fault. That's just reality. And instead of riding that wave, instead of benefiting from the rising tide, some people in the league are trying to tear her down. He compares it to the NBA in the 80s. Magic Johnson and Larry Bird saved that league. Then Michael Jordan took it to another level. And the players who were there before them didn't resent it. They embraced it. They understood that when one player elevates the league, everyone benefits. Bigger contracts, better travel, more exposure. The whole ecosystem improves. That's not happening in the WNBA. And the question is, why?
When it comes to Caitlin Clark, I want to know, in your opinion, what kind of, what do you believe played a role in some of this stuff? Is it just isolated incidents, or do you concede that there is some resentment
Look at her. She already salty
towards this young lady?
Can I give you an example? And sports for people to try to knock off the top dog, right? Like, it's very normal. But what people don't understand is that, like, I played basketball. I started playing when I was 10. I'm 34. So that's 24 years of me seeing the women's game in real time. When Skylar Diggins came out of Notre Dame and went to the WNBA, she was the it girl. She had the culture. She had Drake giving her kisses at the ESPYs. She had celebrities at her games. And when she entered the WNBA, she got a lot of this same type of treatment.
So Stephen A. brings on Chiney Ogumika to talk about this, and this is where the conversation gets interesting. Because Chiney immediately tries to downplay the jealousy angle. She pivots to the idea that this is just normal competition, that every rookie who enters the league as a hyped prospect gets tested physically, and that Caitlin Clark is no different. And then she brings up Skylar Diggins. She says when Skylar came out of Notre Dame, she was the it girl. She had Drake at her games, she had celebrity attention, she had the culture behind her. And according to Chiney, Skylar faced the same kind of physical treatment when she entered the WNBA. Here's the problem with that comparison. It's not true. Or at least, it's not true to the degree Chiney is suggesting. Skylar Diggins was popular, she had a following, but she did not get targeted the way Caitlin Clark has been targeted. She didn't get blindsided off ball. She didn't get officials hovering over her like security detail. She didn't have entire fan bases and media segments dedicated to whether or not the league was trying to humble her. And the reason that comparison falls apart is because Skylar Diggins, as talented as she was, did not change the economics of the league. She didn't bring in new TV deals. She didn't sell out arenas in opposing cities. She didn't force the entire league to restructure its schedule and its marketing around her presence. Caitlin Clark did all of that. And that's why the treatment is different.
She cap. First off, you full of crap. Skylar Diggins, I don't care what she did. She didn't get treated the way Caitlin Clark got treated in this league. You can knock it off. You can see Kelsey Plum's comments. Listen, when you're white and you're straight, you deal with a different level of it in this league, bro. At least Skylar Diggins had the black part going for her. I mean, yeah, I'm just saying. Like, nah, we're not about to sit here and lie and pretend like Skylar Diggins was treated and targeted and attacked the way Caitlin Clark has been. Knock it off, Chiney Ogumike. That's nasty work and you're lying. Stop it. Knock it off. Knock it off. Get down in the comments. Let me know what y'all think about this. This Keep Division. Make sure you like, comment.
But here's where it gets even messier. Because Chiney says something else in that conversation that a lot of people caught. She talks about how the physical treatment is standard, but then she adds this line. She says when you're white and you're straight, you deal with a different level of scrutiny in this league. Now, she's framing that as if Caitlin is getting more protection or more sympathy because of her identity. But the reality on the court tells a completely different story. Caitlin Clark has been getting hammered all season. Flagrant fouls that don't get called, cheap shots off the ball, and officials who seem more interested in monitoring her behavior than protecting her from actual dangerous plays. Kelsey Plum, who plays for the Las Vegas Aces, even commented on this. She acknowledged that there's a different energy around how Caitlin is treated, and it's not positive, it's hostile, and it's coming from multiple directions, other players, coaches, and yes, even officials. So when Chiney tries to make it sound like Caitlin is getting some kind of privilege, it rings hollow, because what we're actually seeing is the opposite. We're seeing a player who is being held to a different standard, not a softer one, a harsher one, because the league isn't sure what to do with her success.
Course. And now take a look at this from WNBA_analyst. It says, Amber Cox and Stephanie White have built a roster and system to work without Caitlin Clark. It doesn't work with Caitlin. I believe that is intentional. I agree that is intentional. They purposely went out of their way to try to build a team to play better without their best player because they want to be able to move on from her. They're sabotaging her, and I think it's 100% intentional.
Let's go back to the front office for a second, because this is where the intentionality becomes impossible to ignore. Amber Cox is the general manager of the Indiana Fever. Stephanie White is the head coach. Between the two of them, they control personnel decisions, system design, and roster construction. And what have they built? A team that plays better when their franchise player sits, a system that minimizes ball-dominant guards, a roster full of players who don't complement Caitlin's skill set, and a coaching staff that, by multiple accounts, has not adjusted the offense to maximize what she does best. That's not incompetence. Incompetence is random. This is a pattern, and the pattern suggests intent. They are building a team that can function without Caitlin Clark, so that when the time comes, they can point to the success they had without her and justify moving her. Whether that's a trade, whether that's reducing her role, whether that's building the narrative that she's not a winning player, the groundwork is being laid right now. And if you think that sounds far-fetched, look at how the media coverage has shifted. Early in the season, it was all about Caitlin's impact, the ratings, the sellouts, the Rookie of the Year campaign. Now, the conversation is about whether she fits, whether her style works in the WNBA, whether the team is better off with a more balanced approach. That shift didn't happen by accident, it's being manufactured, and the people manufacturing it are the ones who control her situation.
Here we go with this lady again. Briann January, stalking. You're acting like a stalker. Why are you hovering over my shoulder every 20 seconds?
So where does this go from here? Because right now, the Indiana Fever are in a position where they have the most marketable player in the history of their league, and they're actively undermining her. That's not sustainable. At some point, something has to give. One possibility is that the front office moves on from Stephanie White. They bring in a coach who actually wants to build around Caitlin, who understands how to use a high-usage guard, who can design an offense that maximizes her strengths. That would require admitting they made a mistake, which front offices hate to do, but it's the cleanest path forward. Another possibility is that they move Caitlin. They trade her to a team that actually wants her, that will build around her, that sees her as the centerpiece and not the problem. That would be a PR disaster for the Fever, but it would also allow them to continue with the system they clearly prefer. The third possibility, and this is the one that seems to be playing out right now, is that they do nothing. They keep running the same system. They keep putting Caitlin in positions where she can't succeed, and they let the narrative build that she's overrated, that she can't win, that the league has figured her out. And then, in a year or two, when her contract situation comes up, they let her walk or trade her for pennies on the dollar, and they spin it as a mutual decision. That's the path of least resistance, and it's the path that protects everyone except Caitlin.
WCW, she came from the ceiling like Sting. She popped up from under the ring like The Undertaker, right behind Caitlin Clark, stalking her. Like Caitlin's having a word with the ref. Fall back, lady. Take a look at it, man.
But let's not forget what started all of this. Briann January, an official, following Caitlin Clark around the court like she's on a watch list. That visual is seared into people's minds now, and it's not going away, because it's not just about one game, it's about what it represents. It represents a league that doesn't know how to handle its biggest star, a league that is more comfortable trying to control her than celebrate her, a league that would rather protect the feelings of veterans who didn't move the needle than embrace the player who actually did. And here's the thing, the WNBA is at a crossroads. Caitlin Clark gave them an opportunity. She brought in fans who had never watched a game before. She brought in money. She brought in attention. And the league's response has been to treat her like a problem that needs to be managed instead of an asset that needs to be maximized. If they keep going down this road, those new fans will leave, the ratings will drop, the money will dry up. And the league will go back to being what it was before Caitlin showed up, a niche product that most people ignore.
It's crazy that this lady's just allowed to stalk this girl around the court everywhere. Like, geez, like, find something to do. Find something to do, lady. Like, come on, you're doing too much. You're doing too much. Pardon me. Hold on. I mean, it's crazy how you just stalking this girl all around the floor. Now, it's very apparent that the Indiana Fever are building elsewhere outside.
And maybe that's what some people in the league actually want. Maybe they'd rather have a smaller league where they control the narrative than a bigger league where someone like Caitlin Clark is the face. Maybe they'd rather protect the status quo than embrace the disruption she represents. But that's a choice, and it's a choice that will have consequences. Because the fans who showed up for Caitlin Clark, they're not WNBA fans yet, they're Caitlin Clark fans. And if the league keeps treating her like this, if they keep undermining her, if they keep letting officials shadow her and coaches sabotage her, and veterans take cheap shots at her, those fans will leave, and they won't come back. The window is closing. The WNBA has maybe one more season to get this right, to build around Caitlin, to protect her, to let her be the star she's capable of being. If they don't, they'll look back on this era as the biggest missed opportunity in the history of women's sports. And Briann January hovering over Caitlin Clark's shoulder will be the image that defines it. Not because it's the worst thing that's happened, but because it's the perfect symbol of a league that couldn't get out of its own way. So what do you think? Is the Fever intentionally sabotaging Caitlin Clark, or is this just a bad fit that will eventually get figured out? Drop your take in the comments, and if you want to see more breakdowns like this, hit that like button and subscribe. Because this story is far from over.